Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Okay, what can I say? If I look sleepy, please forgive me. This is usually my sleeping time in Australia. And it has been a very busy day for me. Weekends are quite heavy for monks because everyone, like the weekends are the days that everyone come to the temple and we organize our programs. So I just finished my personal session here at the Gold Coast Buddhist Centre. And I was told that we start at 1 o'clock, so I was a bit early. Then I had to wait for you guys to come. So thank you for inviting me to Dhamma Centre. The last time I was in England was in 2014. That was how many years ago? I can't even remember the time. I was a student still. But England is not a place that I don't know. I had a brief primary education up in Barnsley towards Sandringham. So I had my time in the UK a long time back. But now I'm in Australia. And what can I say? We have a large community of Sri Lankans in Australia. Australia is, I don't know, I don't feel like at all that I'm away from Sri Lanka because of the large community of Sri Lankans here. I believe it's quite the same in England, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. So it's nice to have, well, I don't know how to put. So Venerable Panyavansa, we have also been knowing for a long time now. He invited me, why don't you come and address my community? So I said, okay, why not? And so the topic was on compassion. Yes. Now, compassion has a huge place in Buddhism. When something is really huge, that means it's a difficult task to achieve that state, isn't it? Like Nibbana. Nirvana is a huge term in Buddhism, like compassion, loving kindness. These have become big terms because we, in many ways, we fail so much in cultivating these qualities. So I have also been trained in the Tibetan tradition. I've taken retreats in Tibet, in Lhasa, and I have my Tibetan teacher. I've also taken teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You know that the Tibetan tradition emphasizes more on the compassion side, whereas the Theravada tradition is more towards the wisdom side. But Buddha, in the Buddhist teaching, freedom, its analogy of freedom would be, is to be like a bird with two wings. One wing is wisdom and the other wing is compassion. We take compassion to be something very Buddhist, but compassion is a part of human nature. When Buddhists think about compassion, because Buddha Mahayana tradition and the Theravada tradition, we talk about karuna, compassion. Everybody thinks that compassion belongs to Buddhism. But the quality, compassion is a mental concomitant. It's a part of our thoughts. It's a thought. So it can be cultivated irrespective of your religion, your ethnicity. Anybody can cultivate compassion. And we also think compassion came to this world through Buddha's enlightenment. At one point, he was saying, in my samsaric journey towards enlightenment to become Buddha, there are two things that helped me to achieve Buddhahood. The first thing he said, completing or fulfilling the 10 paramis. You have 10 paramis is a different subject, a topic that would, I believe Venerable Panyavansa would be addressing later on if he has not addressed. Paramis are perfections. So that's a must. That's everyone knows that the Bodhisattva, Siddhartha Gautama, in his previous lives, he fulfilled paramis. And the second thing he said, during my journey from life to life, I had endearing compassion. So, so compassion and paramis, well, compassion is part of paramis. The other thing he said was to have, he took opportunity, the word that goes in Pali is upaya kosala jnana. He said he took every opportunity in his each and every lifetime to do good things. So these two things help him to mature his paramis and achieve Buddhahood. So the problem is when talking about compassion, I said we all have it in our heart. Compassion is the nature of human beings, that you worry and sorry for other people, that you have the urge and that you want to help someone. That quality, that the crying quality that you have when somebody's in danger, when somebody is in, you understand the nature of compassion. It's about the inner feeling that you have, how do you say in English, that the feeling that you get, how do you say, empathy and sympathy when you see someone suffering, that then the intention or the urge comes that I need to help this person. But the problem is, even if we have that quality within ourselves, we are a bit selective, you know. The four immeasurables, metta, mudita, karuna, upekkha. I don't think, do I have to put that into English? You understand that very well, yes? These are immeasurables. The compassion that we have is quite quantitative. We have compassion for our mother and father, our siblings, maybe our relatives, maybe our own pet, but we don't have compassion for our neighbors, the people who do wrong things to us, our enemies. We don't cultivate compassion towards them. So because of this selective nature, in Dharma it is described that is not true compassion. Also, if you see compassion, if you create yourself a certain negativeness towards someone, when you see someone suffering, for example, if you can visit a cancer hospital or a hospice and keep your head strong without being emotional or without having any negative, when we say negative, it's the anger coming out when you see someone suffering. That is also not compassion. But Buddha is the ultimate compassionate figure that we have. Jesus Christ also showed certain areas when it, he also gave a lot of teachings on love and compassion. But Buddha is the one who bears Mahakaruna, all permeating universal compassion. So a universal compassionate person will never shed tears or show any emotional reaction when someone is suffering. Why compassion is not going to work when it's quantitative, or when you have limited audience for your compassion? Because you are in England, I'm in Australia. The audience might be from different backgrounds. Some of you may be professionals, some of you may be doing, we have so many discriminations among human beings. These discriminations are all ego-based. But there's one quality that unites us all. What is that quality? We are united in one thing. Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, I think
I'll send one.
Mike Summit, I think we are united in suffering because we all suffer. Yes. We may have other distinctions between us. We are Sri Lankan, Sinhalese, Tamil, Muslim, Asian, Australian, whatever that is. But all sentient beings, we suffer. So in that sense, if we understand that much, we also understand that we all deserve compassion and help in every way. So like I said, karuna or compassion is a thought process. It's something within us. It's a mental concomitant. The way to cultivate compassion is also by manipulating your thoughts. Now, when I was given teachings by my Tibetan masters, they have a huge emphasis on having bodhicitta. You can't step into the Buddhist path without an attitude and a mind that you can't simply sit down for a teaching even if you don't have compassion for all sentient beings. So in their preliminary teachings, which I received, was to how to manipulate your thoughts in generating compassion. That's very important. I think that's very important in the 21st century. In the 21st century, I think it's a bit chaotic. And we talk about compassion, we talk about loving kindness, we write poems, we make movies, but I don't know about you. I was born in Sri Lanka in the early 80s. So 30 years of my life, I went through a war. Yes, if it is not first in Sri Lanka, I've seen war elsewhere in the Middle East. So I've not seen in my life, so far in my life, I've not gone through a war somewhere in this world. So we talk about peace, we talk about outward peace, but Buddha said you can't talk about outward peace without finding inner peace. You know, that's the most important thing. That's why these compassion, these things are really, really important. So my Tibetan masters, my teachers, they gave me a certain method that how you manipulate your mind, how you transform your thoughts in generating compassion. So their first teaching was you have to keep all sentient beings dear to you. You know, no distinction. Especially in Sri Lanka, we don't much care about other animals, you know, we don't care much for dogs or cats or elephants, or, you know, they are a totally different species. But but Buddha's teaching is they already belong in a lower realm, so we need to take care of them, you know. So humans are so egocentric. A human exploits this universe. I mean, this world, you know. Sir David Attenborough in his Planet Earth documentary, I remember him saying 60% of flora and fauna in this world is destroyed by this generation alone. Millions and millions of years of evolution. We only live for 80, 70, 80 years, but we exploit, you know, for generations. I don't know whether it would be too political if I bring the British royal family in. The vast amount of things they have accumulated, they have looted the world, and you know, for a little time, a person lives in every human nature. Yeah, we think we keep for our future generations, but that amount of exploitation, world cannot be sustained. So there's no compassionate outlook in our behavior, or because of the self-view or the false sense of identity, we create so much misery. Even in Sri Lanka, because of a division between the Sinhalese and the Tamils, a false sense of identity. When you let go of the ego, it's only love that comes into action. It's only compassion that comes into action. Ego creates a lot of division. So it's very important that according to the teachings that I received, that you have devised your way how to manipulate your mind. So the first manipulation is you always remember that all sentient beings are suffering. So the most important thing in your life is to give priority to them, not only yourself, not only to your immediate family or the selective idea. I mean, everyone thinks cancer patients are suffering, so we need to do something to a hospice or cancer research. That's okay, but that's quantitative. That's very limited. You don't have that all pervasive quality of compassion coming there. So it's very important. The attitude of compassion should always be limitless. Then only actually you can truly develop your compassion. And the second one, as I said, the ego is the culprit. Ego always keeps us superior to everyone else. Most of us are all control freaks. We like to control others. Husband controls the wife, wife controls the husband, both parents control children, children control pets, pets control. It's all controlling phenomena going here and there. So ego, when ego plays its role, it's very destructive, it's harmful, it creates a lot of suffering. So ideal way to cultivate compassion is to tame your ego. That's why I said humans are exploiting, because in nature, if you see, nature is made to be harmonious. There's no other species in the world who exploits so much. The water is free, fruits are free, sunshine is free. Even a tree, the apples are free for everyone. But humans, they grab, exploit, they hoard, they collect, So the second teaching was taming your ego. And how to tame your ego? You have to put yourself last. Even I remember there was a saying by Jesus, the highest among you should be the last. In that way, you live an exemplary life. But we always want to overachieve. We always want to be the first. We always want to, the attitude, the common 21st century, I mean, the human attitude is to achieve, even a child, especially with Sri Lankan parents, simple achievement is not enough. You have to overachieve, So this overachieving attitude always creates so much trouble. So my teachers told me, if you want to cultivate a compassionate mind, you have to be how do you call the rug, the sweep, you have to be like the carpet, that other people can sweep on you. You must be that humble, ego is very minimal. You have to bend, Buddha's analogy for humbleness was, if a fruit, even a tree that is full of fruits would naturally bend. But human beings are not bending, they're very rigid, their egos are very stern. In that way also, there's a limitation to developing compassion. Okay, these are very important, because one way or another, no matter how much you listen Dhamma, if compassion is not coming into play, or if you're not employing compassion, it's not going to be a parami, it's not going to be a perfection. One way or another, you have to fulfill perfection along the way until when you are reaching your final destination called Nibbana, or non-teaching Buddha, or a supreme Buddha. One way or another, compassion plays a part. So these are very skillful ways that you can employ, and it also becomes a vipassana. It also becomes insight meditation to scan yourself and see how much egoic you are. Ego, when you're hurt, normally when people are aggressive, when they don't really have compassion, because mostly when their egos are hurt. So you have to keep your ego at bay if you want to be a bodhisattva. If you want to really help people, you can't be a compassionate person, And the third instruction that I got from my teachers, if you want to cultivate compassion, is to be mindful, especially now in classical Buddhism, in Theravada Buddhism, we have the 4 foundations of mindfulness. We keep our attention on certain particular points: the body, the feelings, the sensations, and the mental objects. like that. Here, when to cultivate your compassion, you have to specially keep attention to your mind. Idea of keeping attention to your mind is when a moment, a negative thought, aversion, or whatever harmful thing arises, then and there you address that. So it's very important that you watch your mind. In the Tibetan tradition, you break a rule, you break your precepts if you have.
Same thing with mother. They're always clear.
You have if you they will be breaking a serious rule if you have any anger towards another person. I remember this His Holiness the Dalai Lama was saying this Tibetan Lama who was a prisoner for 20 years in a Chinese labor camp, and when he was released, he came to see His Holiness, and His Holiness he came to see His Holiness to take the precepts. Then His Holiness asked, why are you taking the precepts again? Then he told His Holiness, during my entire 20 years, I was so careful with all this cruelty, with all torturing, that I would break my compassion towards that person. I maintain that, but to be on the safe grounds, I plan to take the precepts again. So to that extent, they have kept compassion as a very important, you need to have compassion in your life, that you need to give priority. It's very important, through example. Everybody talks about compassion, everybody talks about Buddhism, everybody talks about big things like Vipassana, Shamatha Vipassana, mindfulness, retreats, but they don't have basic qualities of loving kindness and compassion. It's a sad thing, because these qualities create a nice environment. These qualities create a good civilization. First of all, that we create our environment to achieve Nibbana. But when you don't have these ground level qualities, how can you practice? So compassion is very important in that way also. So understand watching your mind is really important. You address issues. In Buddhism, there's no future. Buddha's teaching is really against the past and the future. There's no past and future. We address things then and there. Tattva tattva vipassati, the term, Pali term. So if you watch your mind, the moment you get angry, imagine you get angry over your husband or your children, then and there you have to address, Otherwise, you hit them and say sorry. That kind of compassion, what's the purpose? I remember my mother, she used to beat me and she feels sorry for herself. Then she comes back and tell, Puta, I'm really sorry. And what's the point? Harm done, So I wish I could give this teaching to her before. But you can't escape your mothers. Yeah, even Buddha comes and tells them, they will be the same. Okay, so now, then you are watching your mind in the first place. And at the same time, you come across other negative people, other harmful people. So what are we going to do with them? So the teaching was to embrace them. Usually when we see a murderer, of course, we are afraid of murderers. When we see negative people, we try to avoid them. But my teachers told me, you can't be keeping them aside and carry on with your path. First of all, you have to, even in the Pali Sutras, there are many occasions that Buddha teaches us, when you see someone inflicted with negative emotions and when they are suffering, you have to embrace them, you have to take them as your teacher, they are going to teach you, and at the same time you are going to help them. So that's very important. First of all, they are overwhelmed by suffering. So when you see someone who's suffering, you have to cherish them as someone who's really rare. This is thought manipulation. We used to click with, we like to always mingle with people who are happy and joyful. Yes, we like to have associations with people who are really enjoying. But world is a rare place for a You can't find a shoulder to cry on. That's why a listening person has become a very important role in mental health. Simply counselors are there to listen. Non-judgmental listening is very rare. You know, um, I come from a medical background. So to become a chaplain in Australia, I had to go through training. I was given a very hard time by my teachers here because doctors have a different attitude to counselors. Doctors are very judgmental. They see a patient to cure, never to listen. They always come with a solution. But I was trained in a way that you simply sit down and listening. Listening is a art. It's a thing that you need to master. I don't think humans are good at listening. They always like to give an opinion, or they like to blah, 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 or this, that. Everybody has a solution when it comes to human beings. That's not going to happen. So if you have the quality of a listener, I think falling in love with that person is really easy. Why are we so in love with cats and dogs, first of all, tell me? No matter what, they are not judgmental, no? They always come and wag their tail. No matter what you do, you swear at them, they are going to be there for you. But we fall in love with dogs and cats, but when it comes to our partners, we have issues. We have so much trouble. Then you wonder if your partner could be a dog or a cat. But these are secrets in Buddhism that you need to apply. I'm not asking you, I'm not giving teachings to deceive, or how do you say, attract, what's the word that you use to get someone fall in love with you? Not in that way. If you associate people, there's no wonder people love you. Why Jesus Christ and Lord Buddha is famous after 3,000 years? They never went to Oxford and Cambridge. They never had millions of money. They simply people love. We have statues of them after so many years because they were compassionate. They had enormous love for everyone. But we keep them in our altars, in our walls, and we just try to follow a religion, but we don't learn from their behavior. So compassion without a label, it's compassion, don't take it spiritually. I mean, don't take it religiously. It's a spiritual thing. But on a daily basis, if you apply, I think masses will fall in love with you. That's why Buddha was admired. Buddha, we worship Buddha because of this nature of compassion. So huge psychology behind that. Yeah. So young people should understand how to listen to people, non-judgmental. That art of listening is very important. That's one of the manipulative thought instructions that I got from my teachers, and the other one is taking defeat. A very hard thing to do when we are trained into winning all the time. Nobody wants to take the blame. Especially I've seen couples when they're fighting, everybody's pointing the finger at each other, but nobody's willing to take the blame. But my teachers told me, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, always try to be the loser. In that way, you resolve a lot of disputes. Yes, in my family, I've seen when it comes to my father and my mother, I always thought the one who talks too much had the blame on. They have done something wrong. If Amma is too loud, I really thought she has something to do with this. The same way, if we had anything to do, our consciousness, always we go bananas, we have drama when we have issues. So my instructions was, when somebody is bullying you, when somebody is belittling you, when somebody is harming you emotionally, or take the defeat, and give them always give the other person the victory. This is also a good way to manipulate your thoughts into compassion. And When you practice like this, you will understand life becomes very easy, you know. From a very young time, when I was at school, I used to work for a lot of associations and clubs. I had this quality that if someone wants to take my role, and if he's good at it, and if he's fighting for it, I easily give my position away. Because I don't want to fight for something that gives me headache. So I've always kept that practice, and the little slightest idea that I get someone is trying for my whatever the thing, I say, okay, you take and do it. It's easy. Life becomes very easy. These teachings are there. You know, humans have been there for thousands and thousands of years. And we have 8 billion people on earth at the moment. 8 billion. But how many religions do we have? Handful. Yes. And have you ever thought for 8 billion people, why only handful of religions and we have only handful of masters who can teach us? You have to think about that also, because I think no one is putting their faith into practice. Yeah, so it's very important that you use these techniques to cultivate. Actually, this topic was chosen by Venerable Panyavansa. So he's the one who told me you need to talk on compassion. So I think he understands you as a group of people who has the opportunity and who's suitable for cultivating compassion. We all are, you know, as we are mundane people. I think compassion is not something spontaneous, you know. We have that quality. Naturally we are compassionate, but our egos destroy that quality. We can't see it within us. And the next way you need to manipulate your mind. My master said we have a practice called Tonglen. I'm not going to describe you that now because I'm a Theravada monk. I have no authority on teaching the other school matters, but the very idea of this is to take other people's suffering into you. In that process, we see everyone as our own mother. But we don't look, even the Karniya Metta Sutta, we say mother protecting his only child. So in this way, you reverse the idea, son protecting your mother. So the same way we look at all people and we take their suffering. One of the masters was giving in a teaching in California. So he said, don't you think, you know, it takes a lot of courage. You know, you go in front of a cancer patient and sit down and you say, you do a meditation, may I get your cancer and I give my health back to you. Hardly you can do that. So one student was asking that master, in the process of doing this, what if I get that other person's cancer into me? Then the master says, then you know that you're doing it right, you know. So so if you don't have courage to practically give compassion, in Sri Lanka, everybody comes and say, you know, you can take my life and, you know, live longer, you know, mage ayushath aragena jeewath wenna puluwan. You know, they never come and say, okay, you can take my 2-story house and live your life, take my bank account and live your life. People always take your life for granted, and because they know that they can't take your life away, for granted, you come and say, okay, you can take my Aisha, you know, you can take my life and carry on. At the end of the day, people are very cunning. No, in that way, you can't do. If you are courageous enough, like the Bodhisattva, you can, okay, I can give you one of my kidneys if you want. What if the other person say, okay, can I have it? Are you ready? In that way, in that way, you have to cultivate compassion. Okay, we are only looking at the small picture. But Buddhism is divided, the techniques and mechanisms are devised for achieving a greater, loftier goal, you know, called Nibbana. So our petty attachments, our petty narrow clinging ons, those things are irrelevant. It takes a lot of courage to be a bodhisattva. So this teaching is about manipulating your selfish mind. Is my time over? Noah?
In 1
Okay.
minute.
I have few points. I have few points that then the other one, always when you are cultivating compassion, you should not be affected by the eight worldly, worldly concerns. You should be like a pillar. That's the attitude that Buddha had as a bodhisattva in his samsaric journey. You are very goal-oriented, and if you're cultivating compassion, it should be weak people can't be compassionate. That's for sure. For someone to be selfless, for someone to walk on other people's shoes, and for someone to take other people's worries, someone to take other people's unhappiness and welcome their suffering, they have to be really courageous. Only a Buddha can do that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are a Buddhist audience, you call yourself Buddhist, I think if you don't have a pinch of compassion in you, you have no right to say that. So have a bodhisattva attitude and devote a little bit of your life to 8 billion people out there. When you go out of the door, if you want to help someone, there would be plenty. But you always think about your dog, your children, neighbors doesn't exist. That's why Jesus Christ said, love thy neighbor, not love thyself. Every religion, as I see it, if it is a liberation-oriented religion, spirituality, the number one component would be giving everything, I mean, dana. So if selfless, if there's no, if one can't be selfless, in the first place, the spiritual development would not be quick, or the spiritual development is going to be really slow. But if you have compassion and if you have that selfless attitude, if you are looking for spiritual attainments, it can be really easy and quick. So I think my time is running out. I think there is time for Q&As. That's the plan. So if you have questions, this is the time. I think Venerable Panyavansa has questions for me as well.
Yes, so if someone has questions, you can put it on the chat, or also you could unmute your mics and ask Bhante yourself. So to start off, being the host, I take shotgun. So, so Bhante, could you speak to, or being a medical doctor, having experience with patients, and seeing a part of life that a lot of monks usually don't. How do you see that your compassion, or the way that you see sort of sickness, old age, illness, how has that shifted?
Yeah, that's why I said that during my training years, we are not trained to look at, of course, we have ethics and morals and philosophy embedded into our syllabus, but we have not been specially trained to look at patients as someone that requires a lot of compassion, because the doctors are always trained to look for a solution, to work with pathology, biochemistry, and biology. Hardly, like even the behavioral sciences, we are least trained to work with the patient psychology. And so in that way, as a young student, I honestly didn't take any of the patients into consideration for compassion. But of course, we were concerned about their blood reports and their biochemistry and all the x-rays because we were interested in curing that patient. But I don't know to what extent I had, then if it was true, if compassion itself is in the profession, then doctors should be bodhisattvas. The Hindu tradition say God comes to you through a doctor. That's their understanding. But I've hardly seen any, I believe there are doctors in this audience. I am just not generalizing or being stereotypical here, but this has come from a very Sri Lankan background. Like doctors don't have time for anything other than medicine, you know. Maybe after retirement, they might realize that they had plenty of opportunities to cultivate a bodhisattva life, or they had plenty of opportunities that they could be at service, but this is after retirement. So I think things like compassion, things like dealing with human beings should be given at early stage in life. But unfortunately, Dhamma schools in Sri Lanka, Metta, Mudita, Karuna, Upekha is just exam material that you have to pass exams to prove your knowledge in Dhamma, not something that you practice on a daily basis. If we did, Sri Lanka would have been a different place by now. So Sri Lanka is proof that we have not done that in the past. So I think rather than talking about Nibbana, I honestly think the practical stuff that we can do, like hugging each other, being there for each other, welcoming each other, those kind of things is going to be important, rather than having Buddha statues in every garden, or having crosses and Jesus Christ tattooed everywhere. I think we need to practice these things. My personal experience, this is a personal reflection. Honestly, doctors are not trained to come up with, their profession is not based on compassion. The medicine is totally evidence-based, science-based, looking for a solution, scientifically. But for a spiritual problem, trying to come up with a scientific solution is not going to work. That's why even the COVID situation has failed to a certain extent. We are always looking for a vaccine. But until the vaccine comes, everybody's locked up and they don't know what to do. They start committing suicide in Australia. So that's the thing, So I hope it gives a very, very personal answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Guno. Samantha has a question for us. Samantha, if you would unmute your mic. Also, I would like some opinions of the doctors. We have quite a number of doctors present, Please do share some of your opinions with us so that we all do get to learn.
Where's Samantha now?
Samantha. Please, Samantha, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante, Panya, for this wonderful talk. And it's very interesting and it's important as well. I think something that obviously, as you explained, one should cultivate. My question is, how can one develop genuine metta to someone who has, personally wronged oneself, done something wrong, and genuinely, so that you can forgive them without bearing any grudges. That's something that, obviously I find it difficult. I mean, it's easy to sort of, not easy, but one can show compassion to generally more of other things, to other people. But just generally when it's that personal thing that affects you, that's obviously the ego comes into it. But how do you, the technique to get rid of it, sort of like, obviously is it, and also through meditation, does one develop metta as well through the as you meditate more?
I think the meditation, how we do metta meditation, you sit down and repeat a mantra like, may everybody be happy, well, and I don't think that works.
Yeah.
Because I think you need to get into the battlefield, start fighting, then only you will develop your qualities. But we always, the teaching of the Buddha is a gradual path. It goes step by step. The psychology behind this is, if one can simply fall in love with oneself, that is where you start appreciating other people who are suffering, or your enemies, or you have to truly develop a relationship with you and understand your helpless nature, and the amount of suffering that you endured for someone who did wrong to you. And there's no difference between you and that person in sharing those thoughts. Because as I said, suffering is universal. As long as you and me, we are all human beings. For a little misunderstanding, I can do something wrong to you and you get hurt. And at the same time, but when we are suffering, it doesn't matter what our private problem is, but in our sensation feeling, how we feel for one another is the same. It takes a lot of understanding, courage to forgive someone. Always the world teaches you to forgive and forget, not forgive and embrace. Both forgiving and forgetting is very difficult. So if talking in technical terms, we talk about meta meditation. In modern terms, we can talk about behavioral cognitive therapy. But as a monk, I'm not here to talk about psychology. But that's why we start loving kindness meditation by spreading love to oneself. If you don't fall in love with yourself, you can't fall in love with anyone else. That's the truth. Yet alone, you can't definitely forgive someone that has done wrong to you. That's why even in the Jesus teaching, if someone slaps you, give the other cheek too. Yeah, and also it's our mind when it comes to things like loving. I don't know whether you have a personal situation that you ask this question, but in general, audience, people always want to love the most difficult person. Also we try to fall in love with the most difficult person. So it starts by self-love. That much I can say. If you love yourself, if you don't want to hurt any further, it's more about forgiving yourself rather than forgiving someone else. In that forgiving yourself, definitely the other one will be definitely forgiven. If the other one is always coming around and poking you, then it's a matter that you need to address with the police. But if you want to give a break to someone else, you need to give a break to yourself. But like I said, we live very temporary lives. We don't looking at the long, lengthy journey that we have to go in samsara. Holding a grudge is not worth it. I work with, I believe most of you, I attend with palliative care, and I work with terminal patients. Their problems are never about, these are little grudges they had, not being able to say sorry, before they die, not being able to send cards, not being able to bring flowers. If they want more time to say sorry, they want more time to be with them. So honestly, by looking at this impermanent nature of our lives, having a grudge on someone else is invariably, you're having a grudge on yourself. The problem is always within you. Although we think that other person is triggering me, he did wrong to me, that person did bad to me, actually it's your ego that got hurt in the first place, and you always think, I should be treated in a certain way. There's an accepted way that I should be treated. I should not be betrayed. I should not be hurt. I should not be sweared at, And these are worldly standards. But people can be mean and people can be unexpected. And if you're not ready to welcome that spontaneous reaction from a stranger, then also you're not a spiritually cultivated person. So my idea for anyone would be learn these things from Buddhism and be equipped, work with your own ego. That's why I said be a rug to other people that who can come and speak to, the Venerable Sariputta, when he was blamed for something, he said, I really don't much care because I am like the earth. Anybody can come and urinate and spit on me. I am like a rug, any can even come and sweep their feet on me. But they are enlightened beings, but we are not. Easy to say, difficult to do. But if you're honestly asking me how we can forgive someone who's very difficult to forgive yourself. That's the most important thing. Talk to you and see whether if you are in that person's position, will you forgive? And in that way you forgive and coming to terms with yourself, and that person is then and there dealt with, I believe.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Samantha, for asking that question. Before I hand over to Ruchinda, who wants to ask a question, I have a question for you, Guno. I'm sorry, I'm calling him Guno because that's his first name that I know him from. So,
He's calling me Gona. Yeah, okay. Okay, carry on. Yes.
So we live in an age where it is the age of the selfie, it is the age of social media, and we have a lot of people here who have children, who have grandchildren. How do we teach compassion? Now, you spoke of Venerable Sariputta's example of the rug. How can this be embedded in the 21st century, especially in the time that we live in, to kids who with social media develop a lot of narcissistic tendencies, who tend to think about themselves? How can this be embedded as a message and given to kids?
I think, it's very difficult to address this question. You can't have Buddhist only this should happen in a global setting. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama said religion should be universal. We need one unified religion in the world. When we set our Buddhist kids on a compassionate path, and a larger number of other people who doesn't even know what compassion is, it's going to be very conflicting. So to be honest, how are we going to teach compassion to children? I think first we need to take them out of religion. We need to take them out of the thing called that we are Buddhist. We have to teach children that we are one humankind, and morality and ethics should not be robbed by religion. We think 5 precepts belong to religion. We think compassion and nonviolence belongs to religion. No, we should take that out of Christianity. We should take all these terms out of these labels. And we should tell that if you are a human being, this should be your nature. You are, at the end of the day, you are a domesticated monkey. You can't dictate. I mean, you can't impose a religion on top of everything. Then they prioritize this. Islam is the religion of peace. Everybody argues they only have peace for themselves, not for everyone else. So when peace is robbed by Islam, then they try to seek peace to their means. But if peace is a universal thing, we seek peace as a collective effort. So I think children should not be even. You say it's a rare thing to have Buddhism when you are born into a Buddhist mother and father, to receive the teachings of Buddha. It is a very rare thing in your samsaric journey. That's true. But looking at the folly and the ignorance of people, we have to be very divisive in ways that we give these teachings to the younger generation. Because the current model, the 21st century has come to this place because, like we said, the first teaching Buddha is giving a non-self, non-self, and the 3 characteristics. And you institutionalize the Buddha came and destroyed all other belief systems in India, did a revolution without a single bullet, and went against all other religions and created something called spirituality. Now it all became again institutionalized. Sri Lanka, you can't do anything, because the Buddhist nationalistic view, and Buddhism is all about a tree or a tooth or something like that. So my idea is always we have to how do you say, we have to rescue our children from religion and teach them how to interact with humans that will not lead to mental and physical suffering. Otherwise, if we have labor compassion to Buddhism, then how Christians are going to relate to that? Then there will be always that division, Christian compassion and Buddhist compassion are two different things. So when it comes to making a good civilization, the path to Nibbana should be your spiritual liberation, your spiritual achievement should be very personal. But when it comes to when that thing is going to get imposed into society, I think you have to follow general rules, that is very important.
Thank you, Gunu. If, of course, later on anyone would like to comment on that, or give as a parent, you would like to give your opinions on that, we would love to hear that as well. Ruchinda, you had a question for Bhante?
So from Bhante, I just want to know whether having followed the Tibetan practices, whether I just want to know, like, whether it's really great for leaps in your path. So why I asked this is because there was one of my friends who was born and raised in Sri Lanka, and he to Buddhist parents in the south, and he throughout his life he was exposed to Theravada Buddhism, and then he went to medical school here, and 2 years afterwards, no change in his life, but after 2 years after medical school, he started dabbling in Tibetan Buddhism in UK, and then suddenly, like, we was doing all these Tibetan practices, and that really changed. I could see that it changed his persona and like his determinations, his attributes, and I was quite intrigued how being born a Buddhist and being exposed to, like, he was always interested in like scriptures and things, but Tibetan Buddhism seems to be what actually grew attributes in him.
I know these are my experiences. Why I had to go to the Tibetan side, because I took Buddha's teaching without any denomination. I didn't want to classify or see a division in Buddha's teaching and say this is the Mahayana teaching and this is the Theravada teaching. So if it all came from one Buddha, I had no reason why we should be dividing them. If the Theravadins are going to point the finger at the Mahayans and say you are wrong, then we are discrediting the teachings of Buddha there. But the Mahayanans on the other side, they very welcome Theravada teaching and say we should never ever discriminate Buddha's teachings because of our personal preferences. So that's why I went to that side and explored a little bit what's on that side, and it gave me so many. The puzzle was complete when I stepped into that area. I'm not in any way through this discussion or conversation, I'm not saying that everybody should be exploring into the Tibetan path. There's nothing like that. But if you are a Buddhist, you have to have an inquisitive mind, and you have to have the responsibility. Buddha, when Buddha brought a different teaching to India, he worked with 69 other belief systems. He went against other belief systems. So if you want to understand Buddhism, I seriously, honestly, I believe not only Buddhism, we need to tap into all other schools of Buddhism. Not only that, we have to go into Vedas, we have to go into the Bible, we have to go into the Quran, and have a comparative study as well as unified understanding. What is this one truth? So to answer your question, On the Tibetan side, to be honest, I found this particular teaching because in Theravada Buddhism, all the teachings that I took in Shamatha and Vipassana, I couldn't go beyond the self. There was always someone doing meditation. So that particular view was destroyed by my guru, my teacher in Tibet. So after that particular retreat, I felt liberated. I'm not claiming that I'm liberated, but I got a good grasp of the right view. So I am in debt to my Tibetan teacher for giving that particular teaching, which is quite not available to any other Theravadins at the moment. So I honestly think, because you have to be a seeker, but not to be a scholar. You know, if you have a scholarly attitude, you can't achieve liberation. But you have to have true, genuine intention of going beyond the self and to experience nothingness, emptiness. So in that way, Tibetan teachings were helpful, but with your story, Tibetan also, they have 5 schools and 4 major schools. Depending on which teacher you end up with, depending on which teacher you end up with, I don't know what teachings that person will be receiving. But all 4 schools have compassion, bodhicitta, as their ground. So it's very appealing to a faithful person when you receive a teaching like the Bodhisattva, like the Bodhichara Avatara, and all these things are quite appealing. But we also should not forget that Buddha's advice, like the first turning of the wheel, that we should seek liberation within this lifetime. If you are going to the other side, you have to be selfless, and you should not be afraid of samsara, because you are making a determination, I'm going to be at the service of all sentient beings. You have to have enormous courage to go in on samsara, and samsaric journey is not comfortable. So if you have all skillful means and all resources available to you that you can achieve full enlightenment within this lifetime, you should be concentrated on that. But if you have enormous feeling that I can be more than that, that's the time you make a determination, but I'm not going to talk on that. There are so many things that you can take from Buddha's word, whether it's Mahayana or Theravada. I honestly don't like to make any division right now. I don't think a monk should be dividing things. I think a role of a monk should be unifying things. I'm so tired of dividing ourselves. Division is coming from ego perspective. I can't, because I was ordained and trained in the Theravada tradition. I am never going to say, oh, Mahayana is a big lie, you have to be careful, that side is dangerous. No, I have stepped into that side and I've taken all the good things from that side. I don't agree with most of the things, certain things, which it was not for me, but the things that I've realized through that, the teacher is precious to me, and Bodhisattva attitude is precious to me, and Buddha is definitely in that way. People should be skillful in gaining the right thing from the right person at the right moment. That much I can say.
Thank you, Guno. Thank you, Ruchinda, for asking that. We have another question from Shashika. How do you stay compassionate in the professional life when you are in a position where you have to make unpopular decisions? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I get this. I get this question quite often. I had one of the directors from the Monash Hospital in Melbourne coming to me. He's at the top level. On a daily basis, his job is to fire people. But every day he attends meditation classes, teachings, and this and say, Bhante, it's very difficult for me to go in the morning and fire someone, to take from their earnings, and, they make their life hard, and what can I do? Then First of all, remember, in a professional level, nobody's clapping with one hand here. You know, when you are put into a situation, you are not going to work in a slaughterhouse or a abattoir. But if you are working in a professional environment, even when it comes to doctor performing a euthanasia, that's a different story. But what I'm saying is, when you are asked to do something, there's no individual play here. If it is an individual thing, you know, you're personally taking a decision for your own benefit, that's wrong. But if it is a company policy, if it is an institutional policy, and if you're going by the book and it's out of your hands, there's nothing you can do. If somebody is late for work and if he has repeatedly done that, ultimately rules are set. You know, even in Buddhism, even with so much compassion, there's a limit that a monk can behave. If you have done something wrong, you don't just go and say, oh, Buddha said we have enormous compassion, so you can carry on with all the wrongdoings and stay. No, there's a limit to everything. So I always ask people to work within their limits, you know, work within the worldly standards, and don't take the guilt personally, because you are doing a job here. You are required out of your job. That particular incident or particular thing that you are going to do will contribute to a better world, will contribute to a better work ethic, will contribute to a policy, will contribute towards other people's discipline. In that way, a person cannot completely do harm. You know, when you are taking actions, it's not a personal thing all the time. When you are taking action, it gives a lot of warnings, a lot of opportunity to other people, you know, to learn. In that way, you have to balance the pros and cons and put everything and take into balance and reflect on that particular thing. But if you're not doing anything in the Buddhism like that falls under Samma Ajiva and Samma Kammanta, I think anything you take, even a lawyer, can't there be Buddhist lawyers? They have to practice. Lawyers do all upside down, you know, unbelievable things. But that's within their work environment. And if we are not going to sustain law and order, Buddha never gave us a teaching that will destroy the worldly order. There's no anarchy within Buddhism. I remember this World Religions BBC documentary that commentator was saying Buddhism is the most dangerous concept was brought by Buddha, because he has taken, it's a mistake, you know. Buddhism is not devised in any way to create anarchy. You know, Buddhism is balancing the worldly order as well as the spiritual order. There's a choice that you can make. It's not a must. It's not a communist or one idealistic dogmatic thing. So when you are required out of your job to perform a certain thing, even it goes beyond one concept of compassion, one spiritual principle, it could be strengthening so many other spiritual components that you have to look into. You get my point?
Yes, thank you. Dil, you wanted to add anything?
Can you hear me?
Other people who would like?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead, Bhante?
Please go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Right. So first, thank you for a very interesting talk, but even very invigorating discussion. And I think what I gathered from a lot of what you said, and because I happen to be in the medical profession myself, and Dhamma had a very big impact on my life, and I changed my life not to take up robes like you, but in a very different way. So I understand, and there's a question at the end of it, which I would, if you wouldn't mind, like you to share what was the personal reason and where, in which point in your profession that you decide to take the decision you took, because I think I'd be quite interested in that. But leading on to this, I think one of the most important thing I feel that you stressed and which came home to me was about choice. Because if you really look, right, the way you were brought up by your parents, and we're Sri Lankans, where because it's a world which is overpopulated and there is this primordial need for survival. Parents realize that everything else can be taken away, and they feel that education, and even though they're born Buddhist, there is this need for parents, for the next generation to do better than them. So therefore they will sell their land or pawn their jewelry or do without to help children to get educated. And in that process, there is the world outside is always telling you to do your best, right? Because there are so many people fighting. So I think children, and I'm very glad when you said, but it's a very difficult thing in a world which is ridden by religion rather than these common themes of compassion and things. And we are a long way from that. And that's why we are in this mess. So and I think children who are born now and have grown in a very difficult circumstances, because then their families have grown up in a different culture, and they're exposed to a lot. But I think a lot depends, in a way, I believe, in this karmic potential you have brought, because it depends on where you are on this path when you're born, but it also depends on the nurture you get from your parents and the environment. It depends on your life experiences and the suffering you go through and your maturity. And if, like you and I, being doctors, I was a pediatrician, I believe you were an immunologist, but whatever it is, we see death at a very young age, right? Because we are living with death, and we see families which suffer. And there again, it depends on what you have brought, because like I had the world open to be a prof in pediatrics, but something that I had brought in, I never wanted to do private practice. Now my brother, on the other hand, we had the same family, we had all the same kinds of input. But he was very happy. He went into private practice and he teaches the richest people. I, on the hand, and always went to do community service. I never could even act for him. And so I worked with the poor. And I think it's something that you bring. And also, even though you expose the same amount of Buddhist teachings at home, and I went to a Christian missionary school, he went to a Buddhist school. But still, in me, I always had this feeling of compassion for people. And so when my daughter was born, having had all these scholarships, I felt that she was more important, and nurturing her at that point in life was more important than my postgraduate PhDs and getting back as a professor and things like that. So I think there's a very individual component, and that's why I think it's very good to investigate. I like your approach of looking at both Theravada and find out what it does it mean to you. And there's no one answer for people. But somebody might prefer one thing, somebody would prefer another thing. And like you would have realized you want to go all the way and ordained. But I, on the other hand, came here and got into meditation because I met Ajahn Sumedho. And then nothing else mattered. My home in Sri Lanka, my work in Sri Lanka. I just want to be where I had an open attitude without a cultural bias to learn the Dhamma the way I wanted to learn. It's a very individual thing. So I think in all what I've thought, so I wanted to ask this question from you. Which point, somebody told me, an Australian niece of my husband, that you were also a pilot. I don't know if this is true or not, but they said, is that correct?
Pilot is my piloting. I was not a pilot, but in Australia, I got the opportunity to fly. So I do fly, but flying is an expensive endeavor right now.
Right.
So I don't much go to Melbourne, and it was in the past.
Right.
Before becoming a doctor, I wanted to become a pilot, and my father was like, it's like being a taxi driver. I'm sorry if there are any pilots in the audience, but this was my father's idea. I can't let you be a Sri Lankan attitude. It's you rather drive a taxi. Then I never got the chance to fly, but in Melbourne, one of my devotees used to be a pilot. He said, "Bhante, let's go flying." So that's how my flying dream started. And so I ended up with a pilot's license later on. But I'm not flying anymore. It would, people had a huge outcry, Bhante, in Rome, so why are you flying a plane? Then I told, monks were the first people to fly, So honestly, no, I'm not a pilot in Australia. It was a hobby. So what took me to robes? Actually, I wanted to become a monk at a very young age, like when I was 15, 16, before my O-levels. From a very young age, I didn't actually find meaning in working hard for a temporary life that we live. I realized in my early childhood, if death is our final destination, this might look a bit selfish, but at the end of the day, why you work 9 to 5, for a life that is temporary when you can be free? I honestly didn't understand. I went to another college. So when my friends were doing athletics, when they were running to be first, second, third, I never understood that sport. So I was under a tree and I asked my friend, what is the meaning of this? I don't understand why these people are running to be first, second, third. I didn't understand cricket. To this date, I don't understand cricket. Why somebody would hit a ball and run to this and to that thing, I can't understand. So in this way, I didn't understand most of the things that humans did with this temporary life. So not necessarily that I saw suffering, my intention was to sit down and enjoy freedom. I didn't want to put into a system, a capitalistic system, and work from 9 to 5 to some boss and, bring a lot of money to that company or whatever, rather than you get all sick, and that cannot be avoided. So I just thought, there's a country, there are trees. So that is the attitude that I had. So I fought hard to become a monk, but Sri Lankan parents, Amma, she had all the Sastrakarya paid, and they told me you will become a monk at the age of 60, this and that. So I had to give up that idea. And I ultimately had to go for my A-levels and do my postgraduate. And I was busy doing my work in Washington. I was last working in Washington, D.C. I was into palliative care, and I was working hard from morning 7 to evening 6, my 12-hour shifts. So I told, no, I'm not going to earn a lot of money and die an unhappy life. And she was in Melbourne. I Skyped her and told Amma, I can't do this anymore. Life is more than this. Then by that time, my father has passed away. And she told me, okay, as a parents, we have done our job, our duty. If you want to become a beggar again, if you want to be someone like a monk, sorry, I can't help you in any other way because I need a break. I said, okay, why not? I'm not going to be dependent on you. That's when I went to Myanmar. And not knowing that she had a tour organized in Myanmar with her friends at the same time. So she comes to the monastery and I was ordained one day. And she was really unhappy to see me as a monk. She was crying and I told, okay, go back to Sri Lanka, come again for my higher ordination. She came and she also became a nun. She's a nun now. Yeah. So that's how our lives went, So she's happy, I'm happy, and I'm happy. All I valued was not enlightenment or not enlightenment. I just want freedom right here, right now, not in the future. So even in Australia, if somebody is compromising my freedom, I just move on. I don't give an opportunity to another human being to limit my freedom. That's not, I always think, you were addressing this, when children are born, you put into a system that you don't even understand. You put them on a rat race. But as Buddhist mothers and fathers, you forget that you're robbing their birthright. Their birthright is, even a small child come to this world, the first thing they look for is something, they look for milk. We are always looking for something, but in the name of giving them happiness, you put them on a very artificial system, and we are robbing their freedom, we are robbing their opportunity to realize the truth. But when Buddha says this human birth is very precious and very rare, and now after so much of hard work, we have achieved that, and your parents want us to go to university and do some stupid dig. I don't understand that, Then what's the point of doing all kusala? What's the point of going to a very heavy kusala come and become a human being, and you are expected to take a degree? Nothing wrong. But at the end of the day, because your amma and tata doesn't understand what truth is, but I don't know how, to what extent they have the right, But still, we can't blame it on completely on our parents. We have an individual responsibility to seek for our liberation. And my advice to you also, and you said you compared your journey with your brother. When you have made a personal choice, never compare. Never compare. If you're happy, there will be a time you will come to the very last moment and you will turn around. And if you see all your previous journey happy, that's what matters. If you stand still and compare with the other one, there will be always something good or bad.
No, but it is not a comparison, just to say that intrinsically one is so different. And I'm very glad of what I did. And he's very glad of what he did. But that's what I was trying to say. Each person, and in fact, yesterday I was reading Ajahn Sona, a talk he had given some time ago,
in Canada.
Yeah, and he was asked to talk not on the normal topics that monks are asked to talk, but he was asked about his life as a monk and whether he could speak about it. And he said normally all Ajahn Chah's monks, they always speak impromptu because they believe in the moment. They never allowed to prepare any scripts. But he said that one he had to prepare because there were so many life incidences that fashioned why he became a monk and continued. But it was very interesting because his first intuitive thought happened when he was 15 years old and he had, I think, truanted from school, and he was in front of a beautiful lake. And he said, as he was watching the surface of the water, he had this incredible feeling of something that was not of this world. And he had never been religious. So he was born Christian, but he had never spoken about Christ or gone to church. Or, I mean, they're quite, religious in their thinking. And but he said, but he knew it was a spiritual thing. He didn't know what it was. But he had this feeling of emptiness, he said. And he saw what everybody did in the world, what we do growing up and running and schooling and whatever else, getting married and having children and all the rest of it. But he also saw another part of what was actually happening within your own body. And he saw that the two things are very, very different. And he was left when the feeling, and for a long time he was like in a trance, and when the feeling went, he felt so nurtured and as if he had come to another dimension. But it was so strong, he went back to school and he had a need to share this with other 15-year-olds who thought he was crazy and you tell us this and right, and you got and all kinds of, but he didn't know what it was. He had never heard of Buddhism in his life. And he knew that it couldn't be Christ because but he said that's the reason that. And how he explained rebirth was not because somebody came and told their birth or what the Buddha said or anything else about the Buddha's enlightenment and what he saw in the first watch of the night. What he said was, here he is, and he has nothing in his family that has anything, in generations, nobody has been a Buddhist. In his environment and all what he associated, he had never heard of Buddhism or he had come across it. And yet, he went to university because for 3 years, but he went to do philosophy. He knew that science could never give answers for what he had felt. So he went into philosophy. But even he said studying psychology and philosophy, he knew that wasn't what he felt. So of course he became a monk.
And so this does seem like a very lengthy story and we have gone out of time now, right? So I'm very sorry to interject here.
No, that's okay.
To wrap up the session. We will have to wrap up the session. Shriyani, you had a question. If you want to quickly answer that question, maybe we can.
Yes, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante. I really want to know about a bit about the Bardo practice in Bhante in Tibetan, because I practice Tibetan Buddhism with a group of people for some time. As well, because they say not to remove, when somebody dies, not to remove the body, that disturbs the spirit. And
during the Bardo, now Bardo is the intermediate state. Unlike in Theravada Buddhism, where when you're dead, then you quickly go to the next thing. Tibetan has an intermediate state called Bardo. This is the time that we take the opportunity to transfer the consciousness through a practice called Poa. Now these practices I have done, but unfortunately I have not been given the authority to address them in a public forum like this. because Tibetan teachings are very, very controlled, and I just don't want to go beyond my authority and teach something which I have not fully comprehended. And I'm also in the process of mastering them. But I've taken personally, I have given transmissions and empowerments. I've done a lot of poor retreats, and I've done, even in Tibet, I've gone with my master and done this in front of dead people. The poor, I can just, the very little I can say is, you connect with your mind stream can be connected with the dead person's mind stream, and you shoot that out to the next destination he's bound to. Otherwise the bardo practices are very very gradual, and you have to work with a master. You have to take proper retreats, and you have to take proper empowerments, and you have to have a proper understanding and protection to do these things. At the end of the day, you're working with dead people, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
So I believe, since you have worked with the Tibetan group, you have read the Tibetan book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche. Yeah. When he was alive, unfortunately, he had a lot of disputes and a lot of problems, but he was one of my teachers. So that books give a total idea of what Bardo state is. But we also have a similar thing, we have like King Suddhodana, he got liberated at Bardo. In Tibetan terms, when you are dying, how skillful you are to go through death itself can give you liberation. So in Tibet, we are put into chambers with a lot of images of demons and this and that. We are trained to look at them, and when they appear in your stream, that moment, you're not afraid. These are mental figments, and you know how to transform them into in a proper way. So I will stick with the Theravada teaching for the time being. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, I now it's past midnight for me, but I have time. If you guys are willing to answer, I can. No, of course. Yeah.
No, we will wrap up the session.
Thank you.
And I'm sure, because Bhante is hoping on moving to the Dhamma Centre, I'm sure all of you will have many opportunities to ask about all the questions.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I will also like to sort of state that I was Panya Mansa before he was Panya Sobana, just to put it out there.
So yeah, I can't. When I remember the English weather, I have to let go of so many nice Queensland weather, and thinking of so coming to England would be my second renunciation.
Sorry, Bhante, we'll look after you.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Bhante Panya, for accepting our invitation. Thank you all of you for coming and joining in and making it a lively session for everyone who participated. I had to mute my mic because I was laughing so much in the background, but so I'll see you all tomorrow, and take care. And
can I give a concluding blessing?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to say good night from this side. So all your spiritual, whatever that may be, we say may it manifest quickly, and seek liberation within this lifetime, and wish all the very best in your spiritual path. Thank you very much. Abhivadana silisa nichang vaddha pachayino chattaro dhamma vaddhanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti minate samijjatu. So Patreva Dirgayusha Labeva Teruvan Saranai. Okay, then see you later.
Sadhu. Thank you, Bhante.
I would also remind that this talk would be available on our YouTube channel. For those of you who have not followed the Dhamma Centre, you could visit www.dhammacentre.uk and follow up. And we will have talks coming up as well. So if any one of you is not receiving emails from the Dhamma Centre, do let me know, drop me an email, and I will look into it. Thank you very much, and I will see you all tomorrow for the meditation. Take care and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Bhante.